All right. So yes, we are recording tonight's session. So if your friend couldn't dial in or you want to rewatch the session, I will send you the link to the recording at the latest next week. But about tonight, we have Lena Reick here who will talk about dual axis in Tableau. And afterwards, we will have a short Q&A session. So please direct any questions you might have to the Q&A feature in this Zoom call. If you drop your questions in the chat, they might be dropped or swallowed by the other comments. So please use the Q&A feature and I will keep an eye on that. And in the end, we will announce the next meetup and there will be a chance to network without that being recorded. So no worries. Let me introduce Lena to you. Lena Reick is one of our graduates from the Analytics Academy here in Germany. And she is very new to the data community, especially to the Tableau community. And this is actually her first public speaking appearance. So I'm very glad that she chose Data Plus Women as her platform. And please give her a very warm welcome today. And with that, all I can say is it's very great to have you with us. And I hope you all have a lovely evening. Lena, over to you.
Thank you, Heidi. Just a moment. Yeah, welcome all to my talk about double the axis, double the analytics. As Heidi said, my name is Lena Reick. I'm data analyst at the Analytics Academy of the Information Lab in Germany, and I started there in February. Before that, I studied international tourism management with main focus on controlling and event management. And during the last month, I did my Alteryx Designer Course certification and also the Tableau Desktop Specialist and Certified Associate. You can find me on Tableau Public and my name and also on Twitter. And as you might see, because I'm working from my closet, I'm really into vintage style and everything from the 50s. So the agenda for today is the following. I will start talking about the reason I'm talking about dual axis and how they are a big part of the story, how I became a data analyst. Then we go further with the basics. That means the how to create dual axis and when to use them, even though some of you might already know. After that, I have a lot of examples where dual axis can or must be used. And to have an overview about the whole topic of dual axis, I will also tell you about some negative aspects and the things you should keep in mind when using them. That is the why not. And afterwards, you will have time to ask some questions. And also, as Heidi mentioned during the talk, you can put your questions in the Q&A. Yeah, let's start with the why. During my studies, I had my focus on controlling. And I worked a lot with Excel, and I was also building dashboards in Excel, which looked like this. And when thinking about that now, it was quite exhausting, but I didn't know better back then. One time, a student colleague held a presentation about Tableau, and I was actually amazed by its simplicity, but I thought that is too good to be true. A few years later, I think 2 years later, I met Heidi and the Information Lab on a job fair, and I started using Tableau myself. The first thing I did in Tableau was the exact same Excel dashboard, but with Tableau. And to be honest, in the beginning, it was not as easy as shown by my student colleague, but every time I wasn't able to do what I wanted, I just Googled my question or my problem and I found an answer. And that was a moment where I started to love Tableau because of the community. It's so powerful, and on every question you might have, you will find an answer, or you could just ask somebody, and that's awesome. That's also why I'm very happy to be here today and give something back to the community. So thanks again, Heidi, for having me here at Data Plus Women. Yeah, and as I said a second ago, I fell in love with Tableau. And what's the thing with people in love, right? They can't get enough of what they love. As I was looking for a job in the moment, or at that moment, I thought of doing my CV in Tableau, and that's what came out. Why do I show you this? Because first, hopefully it's inspiring and you try it on your own, because don't limit yourself to what you already know. And also because that was my first contact with dual axes, as I did the lollipop chart in the bottom left with the languages. So I literally learned how to work with dual axes even before learning how to put several values on one axis. Because of that, I mostly worked with dual axes, even though they were not necessary. I am even called Miss Dual Axes by one of my colleagues because of that. And today I want to show the variety of dual axes in different use cases and diagram types, and also hopefully some new inspiration on how to use them. By the way, the inspiration for the CV you can see is from Jade Lee Van. She has a YouTube video online, which you could look at, where she describes how she built the different chart types. What I did next was my letter of motivation, which I want to show you too, because you can see I used dual axes again for the fancy icons. And yeah, I thought when doing my CV on Tableau, it must be possible to do also a letter of motivation, and that would be cool. So I named 5 reasons why the company is the right one for me, and 5 reasons why I am the right for the company. And as I'm here today working for the information lab, I think that worked out pretty well. Other stuff I did you can find on my Tableau public. Just to give you an overview about some stuff I already did. To be honest, only 2 of those examples I used the dual axis, which is in the calendar to show several values in one field, and also on the pump price chart to have an area chart and a line chart on one diagram. So you can see not everything I do contains dual axis, but you probably know how to build dual axis, but let's talk about how to build them anyway. Before I start, I want to give you an overview about possible ways to use dual axis. So I provided some GIFs on the following pages that show how to build the graph or details I will talk about. So you can watch it, because I have no time, sadly, to go and build each live. Yeah, a dual axis chart creates 2 independent axes which can be synchronized, on which 2 separate measures can be displayed in the same chart. And there are 2 ways to create a dual axis in Tableau. First is to take a second measure and drag it into the row area. And by right-clicking on it, you can select dual axis field. In this way, both measures are placed on the dual axis and appear connected in the row area. Another possibility is to drag the second measure to the right edge of the graphic until a green ruler appears. And if the second key figure is placed here, a dual axis is also created. Now you might ask yourself when to use a dual axis. Dual axes are always useful when 2 or more key figures are to be displayed in one diagram, which have a very different size and or do not have the same numerical unit. For example, the sales and the profit ratio, since we have whole numbers on one side and percentages on the other. This could look like in the graph, in the GIF you can see, and the connection of data points, which are lines, should only be used if they are connected in terms of time. Therefore, points are used here for the profit ratio per category in 1 year. The profit ratios of the categories are not related in time. However, if we look at each category over time, a line can be used. Keep that in mind when working, with that. And now the most interesting part of this presentation is where to use dual axes. First, you can use them in bar and bar charts for representing proportions. In my beginning with Tableau, I also knew nothing about reference lines and how easy it is to create them. Instead, I simply used dual axes to represent shares in a bar chart To do this, I simply put the measure sales and profit on a dual axis and reduce the size of profit. I also use the profit ratio as a label. When working with dual axes, you should always consider whether the two axes need to be synchronized for the use case. So a dual axis is not needed for the intention of this whiz. A reference line would work too, but the outcome would be different with a reference line, as you wouldn't create a real bar in another bar but a line. This whiz can also be enhanced by color highlighting. For example, when profits are compared with the previous year, if the profits of the previous year were not reached or exceeded, you might want to highlight those. So you could write a calculated field and put that onto color, and then you will have highlighted whether or not the previous year was reached. And one thing I always found quite annoying was that I couldn't display totals of a bar if I split it into segments. For me, I quickly found the solution to put the same diagram on a dual axis, but not to split it up. This way I can show the totals at the end of the bar, and the best way is to make them bigger and create kind of a bun. Of course, this would also be possible using a reference line. A dual axis is not necessary. In addition to the already introduced bar and lines and bar chart, there are many other chart types for which dual axis is required. A donut chart, for example, which you can see here, is essentially a pie chart with a cutout area in the middle. A dual axis is needed to create a cutout area. There's no workaround, at least I don't know about one. Because donut charts are hollowed out, there's no central point to attract your attention. Where do your eyes go instead? If you like most people, your eyes travel around the circumference and judge each piece according to its length. As a result, you can also think of a donut chart as being a stacked bar chart that has curled around on itself. And we are better in reading and understanding length than areas. So whenever you think about using a pie chart, I would recommend using a donut chart instead, because it's way more readable to a reader. Donut charts still have their drawbacks, of course. While they are easier to read, they are still not the greatest for comparisons within the same graph, and they are downright terrible for comparisons between two different graphs. So you see on the picture, we have the profits of different segments over 4 years, and also split it up to the quarters. And you probably can't see very well the differences between each quarter or year, except for some outstanding results. What you could also do is a lollipop chart. The lollipop chart is a composite chart of bars and circles. It is a variation of the bar chart with a circle at the end to highlight the data value. And like a bar chart, a lollipop chart is used to compare categorical data. The circles can be placed on the bars using a dual axis, and with further formatting and playing it around, it can be really eye-catching. But have in mind that you can't see the exact ends of the bars anymore because of the circles above them. So comparing only little differences gets harder with a lollipop chart. And you will need a dual axis to build one. Similar to the lollipop chart is the DNA chart, which is also called the dumbbell chart, and it's also a composite chart of circles and lines. It is ideal for illustrating changes and comparing the distance between two groups of data points. Like a lollipop chart, the dumbbell chart is used to compare categorical data. It uses circles to highlight values and bars to indicate distance. In the example, we see the 2017 and 2018 sales per subcategory as circles. These are on the same axis, and on the second axis is the line that connects the circles. And also for that, you will need a dual axis. Let's talk about some more fancy visualizations you can do with dual axis, which is an image filled area chart. That one is inspired, or I got inspired from Kevin Furlich to do this, who has a blog article which is named Guardian Area Chart Challenge, because he had a challenge with his brother Ken about that. You can go and read it yourself about a diagram like this. Because you will get the presentation. Yeah, what we do here is to create a calculated field which fills up the area above the actual area chart we want to show. And to put that together, we will need a dual axis. And afterwards, we will put the chart on the dashboard, making the area here transparent and put a picture behind that. So you can, you can show a picture you want in the area. I did this myself and also wrote a blog article in German, but it's not online yet. I was working with data of a magazine here in Germany, and it's about the mentions of Corona. So I choose the virus background for that one. Another interesting thing you can do is to make the user part of the story. This one is made by Ryan Sleeper, and it's about the household income in the US. So you can, or the user can say which income he has and compare himself to the others. And the point is lying on a dual axis. So when you're saying I have 136,000 or 4,800 as income, you see you're under the 2% of the top or bottom compared to the other people. So you've seen a lot of examples now, how and when to use dual axis and what can be built with them. And now I want to tell you about the why not, or reasons why you should not choose a dual axis, or things you should at least keep in mind when using them. First, it can take a few more steps to get what you want, and you should reflect the fact that you have more freedom with one axis maybe. Even though you could use a dual axis, it's not always needed. Something that also I had to learn, because another negative point is that you can't dual axis more than once, meaning that you can't dual axis 3 measures together. But what you can do is using 2 measures on one combined axis and still use a 3rd measure on the dual axis. Anyway, it's not possible to put a 2nd measure on the 2nd axis. So you could put profit ratio on one axis and profit and sales on the 1st axis. Or you could put profit ratio and also the discount on the 2nd axis, because they are both percentages, and the profit on the 1st one. But it's not possible to put all 4 measures into one diagram on both axes, because Tableau can't create the measure values container for both axes. And one of the most important things to have in mind when using dual axis is that they can mislead readers about the relationship between the 2 data series. Because of 0 baselines at different heights, that's a possibility. So the scales of dual axis charts are mostly arbitrary and can therefore deliberately mislead readers about the relationship between the 2 data series. Especially 0 baselines at different heights can mislead. Depending on the use case, you could start the axis at different number than 0, but in general, I wouldn't recommend it because, as said, it misleads. Also, when using bar charts, we always start at the 0. Don't cut off the axis. Most readers are used to line charts with just one scale. So when they see a line chart with two scales, their intuition goes into the normal, that's how I read a line chart mode. Oh, two lines, cool, same rate, interesting. Readers actively need to remind themselves that these points or these two lines have less of a relationship than they are used to seeing in a line chart. The other point is that the different axis range can mislead. Even zero baselines at the same height can mislead, because humans have a tendency to set things in a relation if they are close by. And this relation becomes a huge part of the meaning they see in things. Data points and data series are not an exception to this rule. We automatically compare lines and points with each other, and it's hard to remember that different scales are involved. If things look close by on a chart, it's hard to constantly remember that actually they are miles apart. So what we see in the GIF is that some people could think the profit in 2017 and the years after were higher than the sales because the line is above the sales line, right? But that is just because the axis range is different. So keep that in mind. That's very important. In summary, I would like to talk briefly about the things we've learned and look at the agenda from the beginning. First, you know where my love of the dual axis comes from, and you know how to build them and when to use them. And you've seen several examples that I hope inspired you to work with them and create new content. But more importantly, you also know about the pitfalls that can arise when you either read diagrams with a dual axis or build them yourself. At the end, I would like to thank you for your attention. I'm very happy that you were there, and I'm very happy that I had the chance to talk here. And I will now gladly answer all of your questions.
Thank you, Lena. That was an amazing session. Like, so many things we could learn from that, and so many great examples that you showed. Thank you for that. We actually have a couple of questions. This is great. We never have questions. I'm really happy right now. So we have one question from Jen Lee, who asks, do you have any suggestion on the judgment of whether to synchronize the axis or not when using a dual axis?
I would say that depends on the use case totally. And also what you want to show. For example, I had the bar charts, which were parted into the segments. So when using dual axis for the same chart, I have to synchronize my axis. So the bar with the whole amount is behind them and is not shown. So that is a case where you have to synchronize the axis.
Okay. To add to that, if I may, personally, I like to synchronize the axes when both measures have the same unit. So when you're showing dollars and dollars, I usually try to synchronize. If you're showing quantity and quantity, I synchronize. You don't have to synchronize if you're showing like monetary values and quantities, or monetary and percentages or something like that. Yeah, thank you. And one other question, if you have small multiple charts, they are displayed close to each other, what's your suggestion on using dual axis for this type of chart? So dual axis in a small multiple.
I'm not sure what the question intends.
Have you used them before? So have you like used dual axis in a small multiple in the past?
Actually, not. I had no case where that would have been a good idea. And please excuse that I maybe could not answer that question probably because I have not much experience on small multiples. I know they are there and you can use them, but I have never used them. Yeah, so maybe Heidi could help out here.
Yeah, I'm thinking. Okay, so he's thinking like a calendar. I get that. Yeah, I haven't used that either, but I think it wouldn't be much different. Like it would be slightly more of a hassle to set up, as always with small multiples. Let's be honest here. But I guess I mean the usual principles apply. So don't use donuts as small multiples, as Lena explained earlier. Guess that's the one use case you should not do. But other than that, like showing a line chart in front of an area chart or something like that, I don't see why not. But as Lena said earlier, it always depends on the use case. That will always be the answer, I guess.
It depends, yeah.
Okay. Do you have an anecdote where you tried to use a triple axis and then had to rethink how to present the data? Great question from Gabby. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I think more or less that happens all the time, because I start building after thinking quite enough. So it happens more or less all the time that I have to rethink about what I've built. But I could not think about an exact example for this, but I recommend to think first. that saves you a lot of time, and then build. But yeah, you have to think about it, or you should think about it, because as said, you're not able to put as much measures on dual axis or triple axis as you want.
But it's use case. Yeah, sorry, you go ahead.
Yeah, it's always, I would recommend to put measures in the same metric or unit on one axis, and separate those by the unit.
I recently had a use case where I had one bar chart and then inverted another bar chart, so they went from the outside in, and that was confusing to the user. So they asked if I could use another chart, so like bars on one side and something else on the other. But since I wanted it to be reversed, I needed the bars in order to make it really obvious, and I couldn't use lines because there was no connection. And I ended up kind of faking a lollipop chart by just using a line going in and then highlighting the end. So yeah, sometimes you have to get creative if you want triple axis. That happens all the time. Okay. Do you have a favorite chart type that you find yourself returning to?
Oh, that's also
a nerdy question.
Not really, because it depends always on what I would like to show and what my intentions are. But I can definitely say whenever it comes to showing shares, I will always go for the dual axis in the bar and bar chart. I don't know why. I kind of never use reference lines, even if they can create great bullet charts and stuff, but yeah.
I get that. What's your favorite topic to viz about? Like, I know you have many fancy vizzes on your Tableau public profile, but what's one topic you'd like to return to, or that you would like to viz about at some point?
I always try to viz about stuff that I'm really interested in, and I also have shown the calendar, which shows the days and how in America, and how many people got shot or killed by the police. Because, for example, I had a discussion on social media with someone, which also contains the Black Lives Matter things going on, which are really important, I think. And that was something I thought about a lot. And he was saying that so many people or so many police officers get killed, and I was like, I don't know. And then I get into the internet, searching for data, going into the topic, and try to build something that explains things of that more easily. So, and and that helps also to have a more, have a foundation on your arguments and stuff like that. So I'm really into building things that have an impact, and I'm really interested in.
Yeah, I think that's really important when you, especially now when people become less and less certain whether they should believe the media or not, to have the ability to dig into your own data or into other people's data, but analyze it for yourself. For people who maybe don't have as intense a data background, what would you recommend, or what was your story of getting into data analytics? What were your first steps? What would you recommend to others?
Just do it. I don't know. That was how I did it. I just downloaded Tableau. I was able to do that because I was still studying, so I could download Tableau desktop, and yeah, I was sitting in front of it and was like, okay, interesting interface. I don't know how to do anything, and then I started Googling how to use Tableau, watched some videos, and yeah, I found on every question and answer. That was great, and that's still like it. Even though I've learned a lot the last month, there are still things I don't know and I could not do, and then it's the first thing I do is Google and reach out to the community and ask my questions.
That's great.
Just get some data anywhere. There are a lot of possibilities in the internet. Find a topic you're interested about, and yeah, just start.
Any sources that you recommend to find your data?
Actually, I have no resource where I go to first, because I just start Googling and then find different resources. I have one in mind, but I can't remember the name right now. You probably know it too. Is it
Data
GitHub?
World? GitHub, yeah.
Yeah, and also Data World. That's also great. True.
Yeah. Okay. Was there any point in your learning where you got stuck, and do you have any tips on how to overcome getting stuck?
Yeah, definitely. That happens all the time at some point. And yeah, what I do is just close my laptop and do some other stuff, or sometimes I also talk about it to someone, just telling them my problem, and then probably at one point suddenly I know the solution. But I feel like it helps a lot to have some rest at some point when you get stuck, and go further on another day. Sleep about it, yeah, and then you can start refresh and hopefully solve your problem. And if not, reach out to the community.
Thank you. One thing I always try to teach is that you have to kind of get a routine in what you do in order to get really comfortable. So what do you do to exercise your data analytics skills?
What I did for months and weeks was to attend the Makeover Monday quests, and I did this every week. And I started a few weeks ago to have a own Twitter account where I compared my own visits. I shared them there too, and sometimes I got some feedback, which was really helpful. But also I was looking at all the great things other people did and really thought about that. And I was thinking about what does work, what do I like on this visualization, what would I like to do different and why. So really think about what you do and what others do. And yeah, I also collect visits I like on Tableau Public. I just give them a heart and sometimes go back and review all the stuff I have saved there. And that is also at some point inspiration to build something.
Do you try to reverse engineer any dashboards that you find on Tableau Public to find out how it works?
Yeah, very often. If I have the possibility to download them, I try to go into it and try to figure out how they build it. Or I just ask. There was a great with Judith Becker did on music, and actually that was also my first idea. It was about how the music has changed in how we play them, so vinyl and CD and those stuff. And I wanted to display it as a vinyl, but I wasn't able to build radio lines. And I saw her this, and I was like, I was trying this one day and I couldn't figure out. I've read some blog posts, I've watched some videos. How did you do it, or what was your source for it? And then she shared it.
Yeah, I still don't understand how those work, so you might have to show me at some point. Okay, we have one more question for me, actually. Jendi is asking, with my developer background, so I used to be a software developer, how important do I think coding skills or programming skills helped in my data analytics career? Not at all. That's one thing I will say here. So I actually started in my data analytics career when I tried to get out of IT, because that's how I encountered Tableau as kind of like the meeting point between IT, which I was trying to get out of, and controlling, which I was trying to get into. And then I met the information lab, and that's how I got my first job in data analytics. And here I still am 3 years later. It has helped me as a woman, I feel, when talking to IT people at the customers, because usually they see you and they think, yeah, you don't know anything about data. And then I go, yeah, but you missed a comma in your SQL statement, so you might want to check your code, which is always very satisfying. But other than that, I can honestly say I've forgotten most of my coding skills, few as they were. And data analytics has really helped me develop or grow into my design skills, my presentation skills, my people skills, but not so much my actual hard skills in coding or IT. But I know that there's people out there who are very much into that server stuff, into ETL processes, etc., which I understand, but I don't really prefer. So I like to stay on the design side of things, on the customer side of things. But yeah, so I can honestly say coding was the one thing, my wish to get out of coding got me into data analytics. I guess it is helpful, but I would say with anybody who doesn't have any IT background or any background in coding, please don't feel like you don't belong in the data community. You belong. If you want to get into data analytics, you don't need any IT skills. You just need an inherent sense of curiosity and trying to find out why things work as they work, and just being really into questioning things. No IT skills, or very few IT skills needed. You will develop them on the job. Lena, tell us, you don't really have an IT background. Have you run into any barriers where you said, oh, if I had any coding skills, this would be so much easier?
Not before, because before I studied and I did not need that there. But when starting the academy, I really was afraid about all that because I never was an IT person. I was just happy when my computer or laptop worked, and I had no idea about anything. Also, informatics was never something I really liked in school. But yeah, I really learned a lot about that, and I'm really happy to have this knowledge now. And it was not as bad as I expected it to be. Okay. And I'm also really amazed because I have learned so much that's incredible, and I'm really proud that I can say I can write SQL now, and I don't I know about yeah, data banks.
Databases, database
Database,
design.
yeah, of
Yeah.
course. Yeah, I think that's amazing.
Yeah, so you see, I have 3 years in IT and I don't know anything about it. And now you have Lena, who had 4 months at the Analytics Academy, and she's a pro. So yeah, you don't need an IT background for data analytics.
I don't know, but yeah.
All right. Do you have anything you would like to say to the attendees, like things that inspire you, things to inspire others to? How do you go on now?
First of all, I want to thank you all. I just read all the comments. Yeah, thank you that you like my presentation, and also thanks for the comment on my style. Yeah, just do what you like. Go out there, train with Tableau, always share your work. Feel free to contact me on Twitter, or I don't know. I'm also on LinkedIn, so you could also find me there. Reach out if there's anything I could help on. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thanks for being with us. We're not quite finished yet. Thanks. I still have to announce, so if I just manage to share my screen. Yeah, so we do have a next meeting coming up in just under 2 weeks. So on July 14th, we will have Emily Kuhn, that great woman who I always quote at the beginning of this, and she will talk about accessibility and data visualization. So I would love to see you all there. You have the QR code here, you have the tiny URL there, and I will probably also send out this in the follow-up email. So I hope you can all make it, and that I will see you at the next event. With that, the official part of the evening is over. I will hit stop recording in just a bit, and then I will wait for a couple of seconds. So anybody who wants to drop out, feel free to drop out. But anybody who sticks around, I will make also a panelist so that we can just chat a bit. So you can share your experiences or talk to Lena, get rid of any questions you forgot to ask in the meeting, or just let us know how you feel. So with that, goodbye to anybody who's going to drop out, and hope to see many of you in the networking bit.